All right. Peace, everybody. I am Brenda Williams, the founder of Culture Shifters Unite, a womanist multimedia platform who supports the becoming and the unfoldment of women in films through storytelling, culture making and keeping, and community. We do this through the Brenda Williams Show, the Solo Will Lead Her, the podcast, and Unnetworking. So today I'm joined by a very, very special guest, as you all may have seen across socials. Next week we have a seasonal formation gathering. And what does that mean? It means that we're summoning forth feminine leaders. So whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a C-suite executive, you run a nonprofit organization, you're the ED, or you find yourself in a leadership space, but the capacity just feels like it's not there. You've been doing everything, the meditation, all of it, but still, we know that metrics are what they are. We need to have them; those are important, but we want to also make sure that our souls are lining up with the work. And from time to time, life will give us a special set of circumstances that we may not necessarily be prepared for. But if we come together in community and can identify that season, then we can work through it. And I think one of the superpowers of the feminine is that we work in collaboration. And that's definitely a womanist way. And so, speaking of womanist ways, I have the incomparable candidate for state rep representing District 8, DeAnne Austin. So, a portion of the proceeds from this gathering are going to Black women who are running for public office. And as I said before, in the lineage of Ida B. Wells, in the lineage of Shirley Chisholm, in the lineage of Maxine Waters, we understand that in this country, Black women have been at every single front of social change in this country. Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, we can keep going. Coretta Scott, Merle Evers, Dr. Betty Shabazz. These women were also holding up the pillars of the civil rights movement, and we would have no movement if it were not for Black women. And DeAnne is in that lineage. She's a lifelong Detroiter, educator, and community organizer who has dedicated her career to serving students, families, and working people. She was raised by a single mother, and she learned very early on the importance of perseverance, community, and creating opportunities for others. Her experiences navigating the public school system, public transit, hello, and
Hmm.
economic challenges have shaped her commitment to fighting for policies that help people thrive. Over the past decade, DeAnne has worked in education, youth development, voter engagement, grassroots advocacy, and helping to connect communities to resources and empowering residents to make their voices heard. She has worked alongside students, families, and community leaders to expand opportunity to strengthen neighborhoods across Southeast Michigan. DeAnne, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Brenda, for having me here. It's an honor to be here.
Listen, it's an honor to say that, sister to sister, Black woman to Black woman, we all we got.
Hmm.
And so to see you, Amanda Trippa, uh, Lakeisha Moore taking up position in our communities in the ways that our ancestors have, it was just easy for me. It's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do where I am, how I can? And I said, okay, this is what I can do, where I can, how I can. And as you named in the green room, so many of us are going through life challenges and obstacles. And what I love about the tenacity of your work is that you're no stranger to it. You have been doing this work without the office for decades. So I
Yes.
want to know what inspires you to say, you know what, I am going to put my name, I'm going to put my hat in the ring, and I'm going to run for public office.
Yes, I my journey towards running for public office is did not happen overnight. I often tell people when I graduated from Michigan State back in 2009, I came back at the housing crisis. It was a recession, and so my mother had lost our childhood home, so I had went back to stay with my grandmother, and it was really hard for me to find a job. The job that I eventually found was all the way in Livonia as a non-driver. I had to take 3 buses to get there. And so that really took a majority of my day. And, I love different cities in Michigan. I said, oh my gosh, my passion is really helping my residents, the people really in my own community. And so I worked that job in manufacturing for about 8 years, but I finished my graduate degree from Mary Grove College. I'm dating myself when it was, yes, a college in social justice. That's where I got my master's. And so, Brenda, there was no social justice issue that wasn't dear to my heart, whether that was the environment. I mean, even though I was spending, those evenings working in that plant, I got involved with Detroit Future City as a land and water ambassador, showing the importance of green water infrastructure to my residents with these 100-year rains were and storms were happening every other day. And so I knew my fellow residents, we were affected by flooding. I also got into more transit work because that was my experience of navigating the public transit space. I was a mogul ambassador, and so I just kept working. And then I often say that I stumbled into education, but I think it was really fate. I became a academic interventionist with Henry Ford High School for a couple of years, and I was also a community engagement leader. So I knew that my work, while I wanted to support my ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders in reading, I wanted to be the bridge and show parents and students, hey, there's a bigger part of what's going on, and that was public policy. So at DPSCD, their government affairs office was super important, but I didn't stop there. I started a civic club course for my 17 to 18-year-old students to get them more civically engaged. I remember I had a student say, oh, Miss Austin, I don't do politics. And I just had to, my mouth dropped to the floor, because as a black woman serving black and brown students, we don't have that privilege. You might not do politics, but baby, politics are going to do you. And so I wanted to push, no matter what. I was working in education. I went on with different AmeriCorps programs. I was an instructional coach, but still getting into organizing. A lot of people know me from my past work with Mothering Justice. I was a voter engagement organizer, started in their Mama Vis Fellowship, moved up to voter engagement organizer, then moved up to political organizer. And so I did that for many years, fighting for paid leave, maternal health, reproductive justice, and basic needs, because I realized at the core, whether it was my students, whether it was my neighbors, when families have the core of what they need, basic needs, they're not just going to live, they are going to thrive. And so my journey, which has had, of course, going back to what led me to run, is that we are seeing it. We are in a crisis. This federal administration, we are already looking at the implications of what I call the big ugly bill, right? Our safety nets are being squozed. We are trying to appropriate funding. A lot of us are losing funding. There's been a cutback of DEI. And I feel like now is not the time to sit back. I'm part of that 92%. And I know a lot of people said, oh, I'm going to rest and let someone else take care of it. I took a rest. My grandma said, always rest for a day. But when I woke up the next morning, I say, there's got to be more. And so whether that's voter engagement, whether that's fighting for advocacy rights, or I'm back working in the classroom, I'm on summer break, working with elementary and middle school students, but I'm knowing what they need when they come through that classroom. I want them to thrive educationally, but if their stomach is grumbling, that could be food insecurity. If they're staying from relative to relative, that could be housing. So all these things and all of these policy issues that I've cared for, I want to take to the legislator and fight for, my district and my community.
Absolutely. And it sounds like this really leads into my next question. What has leadership asked you to become?
That's a good question. And I hate speaking for, every black woman, but I know a lot of us we just jump up and do things. I am a carer, nurturer by heart. I don't have any biological children yet, but I am very much a nurturer. I'm thinking about the next generation. I think that's what I love about education. So I've been asked to step up to still be a teacher, be a leader. And so many people often ask, do you feel more like a teacher or educator or organizer? And I said, well, you've got to be a good organizer before you can do anything. I don't care what that is. And so I often say, people will often say, oh, you should run, you should run. But again, Brenda, it took me several years and in the last couple of months to say, you know what, DeAnne, first time candidate, everything against you, shoot for it.
And you know what? And that's one of the things that I love hearing about you and of course your evolving story is that this is your first time running for public office. And I think that there's something to be said about electing a non-career politician, someone who comes straight from the community, straight from organizing, straight from the classroom, straight from the very places that are the most impacted, because you've been right there in the trenches doing the work without the title.
Hmm. Yes, and titles, I don't want to say that they don't mean anything. I know, like at my big age, I just turned 40 in February. That no, I've put in some really good work, but those mean nothing if you're not doing the work that you're supposed to do. I'm running on a platform that says government should be working for us and not the other way around. We're seeing progressive movements happen because the same old is not working anymore, and I'm all about having some type of solidarity, and that is really just really trying to make my mark, and it's definitely hard. It's a tough decision too. They're often, I can't think of the exact number, but you have to ask a woman several times to run to her male counterparts. I want you to add on that layer to being a black woman and having still a limited number of resources, the fundraising, the recruitment. I mean, there's days and nights that I'm making calls by myself, door knocking by myself, and I'm really okay with that in the sense of that's what my past work prepared me for. But just looking at all the foundations and things, then the money power that is really super hard running as a first time and black woman candidate, and it's really hard. But there's so many, like you mentioned, Amanda, there's so many great other black women who are just stepping up to the plate. And so I always say I'm great that I don't come from politics, but guess what, if I don't make it past the primary, I assure people I'm still going to be in the community doing the work. And I always say, when November come, we're already a hot spot of our democracy being threatened. We're reading about it and listening to the news all around the world where we say, oh, well, this is Michigan, but no, this is going to hit closer to home. And what does it again mean to be a black woman, fighting for our democracy and fighting for our right to vote? If it wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to take it away from us every day.
Listen to that. And so that brings me to my next question. What future are you trying to build?
Whew. The future that I'm trying to build is abundancy. I want policy to work for everyone. The majority of people, not millionaires or billionaires or don't have access to these things, are struggling. And so we need to have great policy to strengthen that livelihood. And so again, I often talk about we're not just here to thrive. I mean, we're not just here to live, but we're here to thrive. And so in these times where money is tight, gas prices are rising, not being able to find a job, especially for us black women, is super hard. But I don't want that to be the trickery. I don't want that to be the narrative. If possible, yes, it's hard times for us, but we've been here before. But how do we combat that? How do we, again, pull into our close community and safety net and make sure that we are not only helping just ourselves, but those around us?
Mm-hmm. And that's so important. And I think, when we think about womanist praxis and womanism, we think about everybody. We think about the
Mhm.
race, we think about gender, we think about orientation, we think about age, we think about ability, we think about who is not at the table and who needs to be here, who's the most vulnerable, how can we shape and support the most vulnerable. And I think this is really important because everything that you're naming and doing, I have known for generations black women have done. They have done with under-resourced, undervalued, underacknowledged, um, sometimes to their own detriment. So I want to know, DeAnne, how are you taking care of yourself in this season?
It's really, really hard. I've often talked to you about being transparent. I mean, since I've had to run and, leaving my job and trying to find, new just ways of financial gains to just take care of myself aside from the campaign has been, hard for me. I have a couple of different health issues, so making sure that I have health insurance. There's been those gaps where I'm counting the last, blood pressure pills, or I'm watching, my glucose really heavy, and making sure that I'm taking care of myself. I do miss going to therapy. I know some of us black women, we like to just power through, or like, oh, God's got us. But no, I think God has given us other resources to seek that. And, there's been moments again where I haven't had the insurance to take advantage of that. So it's really been my ecosystem, I want to say, of other black women. When I ran, I'm about to say, oh, I've got you. We're going to be there. And you think of all the support that you're going to have that necessarily you might not get. But it's been those late night calls. I have other friends who are running, and I was at her house last night with another friend of ours who's into politics and things like that. And this race can be very daunting. There's a lot of noise. There's happy moments, you see, like the rally signs and the house parties and the canvassing, but there's another side to it. And again, I'm not a career politician. This is my first time, so keeping my head above the noise is important to me. So it's been my faith in God that's been keeping me, and my sisterhood. I don't know what can happen in the next 30 days, but it's just, I call it a crazy faith. I call it a crazy faith.
And listen, faith is crazy. We literally talked about that this week in Bible study. We looked at Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the evidence of things not seen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're putting our hope, in those things that are unseen. And but we do know that there is this silent partner that is walking with us, holding
Mm-hmm.
us up, or undergirding us. And we can look at history and we see and we understand that, you know, when we look at how it's written, when it's all said and done, God is always on the side of the oppressed, always on the
Mm-hmm.
side of the underdog. We can keep going through and look at all the unlikely prophets. One of my favorite unlikely prophet is Suge Avery from The Color Purple.
Mm-hmm.
When she said it pisses God off for us to walk past the color purple and not acknowledge it. And I believe that Black women are the color purple.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And it was so funny is those are my colors. Like on my literature, it was my mom's. My favorite color is black, but my mother really loved purple. I also have some family members who love purple, and I think that that's just a great analogy for
mhm.
where I'm at in my season. It's a royalty, right? We forget that we come from nations of royalty and strong blood, and so no, that was one of our favorite, my mom and I's favorite movie. So yes, come on, Suge.
Come on, Suge, the unlikely
Hmm.
prophet, because she got Celie together and to see and to witness herself and her brilliance and to be strong enough to walk away from a relationship that did not honor her. She stepped into her own voice, and then that goes back to what you were saying about the ecosystem and your sisterhood, helping you to step into your own voice, helping you to remember your power. Door knocking, I know sometimes it's daunting when you have to do it alone, but I know you got sisters that show up and do that. And you came from a sisterhood organization, Mothering Justice, watching that ecosystem. And so I have a special place in my heart for Mothering Justice as well. And shout out to the Wisdom Institute, Black
Girl,
organ.
Cicely, all of them, Tanya, oh, those are my girls. When I see them, and that's the hard part of campaigning. Like I said, give or take, well, no matter what happens, those are my safety nets. Those are where, when we're doing in the field and spreading good information, right, we're always teaching. In a sense, it doesn't mean, if you might not be in the classroom, or a professor or anything like that, but we black women have always led the stance on being that community educator.
That's right. That's right. So, where can we support you? So tell me where we can find you on socials, but also what are some immediate needs that you have for the campaign that we can source support for you.
Mhm.
Um, so tell us all of the things.
Yes, so they always say, especially getting into our final stretches, doors and dollars. And I never came really from money, never had. Even in my majors, I knew I was not going to make six figures. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I came from a single mom. I came with up with very little, but door money donations do help. You can go to my website at votedeanneaustin.com. There is a donation link. But also, I'm recognizing, again, I don't come from a lot of people who are wealthy in that sense, but hey, I've got some mama friends who say, hey, DeAnne, I found a sitter. Can I help you knock a door or two, for a couple of hours? Or can I show up to an event and just help support you while you're speaking? And so I think that that's super important. I'm on Facebook. For DeAnne Austin for state representative. I think you also have my personal page as well. I'm
Mhm.
on IG as Vote DeAnne Austin as well. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very, very accessible if you want to reach me by email. And just like I said, you might not have the time to knock doors or even donate, but if you want to send me some encouragement or make a few phone calls, we're going to be doing phone banking pretty soon. So I'm just blessed to be here. And it's also, I'm learning, it's a privilege to run, Berhinda. It was a very risk. Some nights I feel like, okay, I never question if I've made the right decision, but I'm like, oh, DeAnne, that was really, really risky. But on just turning 40, I said, I don't have a husband, I don't have children yet. This might be the perfect time for me to run. And I'm also a believer in divine fate. Again, nobody runs to lose, but I do recognize, hey, democracy didn't start with me. I'm more about the movement. And so, but I know that this was a time and a place in my life that I needed to step up, like so many others who are sitting at home and they want to get involved and they don't know how. And it can start with advocacy. It can start with public service, serve your neighbors and your friends. And so I can be long winded. So I know you asked me a simple question, but thank you so much for having me. And you can always reach out to my networks and find me.
And no, this is, we need all of the information, all of the details. I think that that's one of the important pieces too of, civic imagination is what are the different ways in which you can get involved. And sometimes people think it's simply donations, and it is, but also is it simply door knocking? It is, but it can be so much more than that. And so I love that you gave creative pathways in order to support you with the advent of social media. Someone sharing your profile, someone sharing your platform that you are running on, someone doing a direct text message, and like you said, sending you a word of encouragement, right? So I think that there's so many different ways to support, to be supportive, and you're doing the mighty work. You did the hard part. You're getting your name on the ballot, man. We will be able to go in and vote for you. So again, you are running for state rep in District 8. So give the people who may not be from the Metro Detroit area, where is District 8 located?
Yes, it's what I call an eclectic district, because there's been so much redistricting. So I live in Northwest Detroit, near 6 Mile area, but it can stretch up to all of Ferndale and all of Pleasant Ridge. And so I often say those three communities can look different, but when I'm talking in the communities, we all have shared values, things that matter to us. And so, and I know I have a lot of family and friends who, don't live in my district, but still want to support. And so it's just building the community within the district and also networking. I love my district, but I'm fighting for all Michiganders, baby. We all want to strive. So I know support can come in many ways. So,
Love
yes.
that. I just want to thank you again so much for being here with us today. We'll definitely, when we, for those of you that are catching this on the replay, please look at the show notes to find out more information about DeAnne and how you can support her and all her social media channels. And join us next week, Thursday, for seasonal formation, also known as seasonal planning. And what we're doing is convening feminine leaders together to look at not just the quarter. We're looking at it from what season are you actually in? What do you want to be building? What do you have the capacity to build? What have you been carrying that's not yours alone to carry? How can you get yourself into a formation, into a sacred formation, so that you can live the life that not only you deserve, but the life that you desire? And
Mm.
we do that when we can get still. And so often there are so many things vying for our attention that we can't get still. So I just invite you to join us for that. You can look, again, go to the webpage for that, located here in the show notes. DeAnne, thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you today.
Yes, glad to be here and I hope to come back soon.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you all next time.